places of healing, places of hope. But what happens when the very walls meant to save lives hold something sinister? Tonight, we bring you 3 terrifying true hospital horror stories. Stay with us, if you dare. It started as a strange rumor among the night shift nurses at St. Clair's Hospital in Louisiana. Room 316 had a reputation. Patients placed there would always complain of the same thing. There's a nurse who comes in at night. She talks to me. She even adjusts my IV. But I never see her face. At first, the staff brushed it off. Maybe the patients were groggy, confused from medication. But then it started happening too often to ignore. Some patients would wake up in the middle of the night feeling cold hands pressing against their foreheads. Others would insist they had long conversations with a kind nurse, only to find out no one had entered their room for hours. It became an inside joke among staff. "Oh, you got room 316 tonight? Hope Margaret doesn't check on your patient." Margaret. That was the name whispered in the halls. The name of a nurse who had worked at St. Clair's decades ago and died under mysterious circumstances. One night, a security officer named Daniels was patrolling the 3rd floor. It was close to 3:45 a.m. when he passed room 316. That's when he saw her. A woman in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform, the kind from the 1950s, was standing beside the patient's bed. She was adjusting the IV line, her face slightly turned away. Daniels assumed she was a nurse he didn't recognize, so he stepped inside to check. The moment he entered, she vanished, not walked away, not slipped into the shadows. She was just gone. The patient, an elderly man recovering from surgery, was shaking. "You saw her too, didn't you?" he whispered. Daniels felt his stomach drop. He called for backup. But when they checked the security footage, there was no sign of anyone entering or leaving the room. After that night, a veteran nurse finally spoke up. She told the real story of Nurse Margaret. In the 1950s, Margaret was a devoted nurse who worked at St. Clair's. She was known for staying past her shifts, making sure every patient was comfortable. But one night, she made a fatal mistake. Margaret had been working long, exhausting hours, and while tending to a critical patient, she administered the wrong dose of medication. The patient died. Racked with guilt, Margaret locked herself inside room 316, the same room where it happened. When they found her the next morning, she was dead, overdosed on the same drug that had killed her patient. The hospital covered up the scandal, erasing Margaret's name from records. But some say she never left. Skeptical staff members began digging into old hospital archives. Eventually, they found a faded black and white staff photo from the 1950s. When they showed it to the patients who had claimed to see the ghostly nurse in room 316, something terrifying happened. Each patient hesitated before answering. I didn't get a clear look at her face. I was afraid, but I'll pay closer attention tonight." That night, the patients waited, and when the shadowy nurse returned, they forced themselves to look directly at her face. The next morning, the staff showed them the old hospital photo again, and this time, every single patient pointed to Margaret. After that, the hospital stopped placing patients in room 316. But to this day, nurses still hear whispers in the halls late at night, and sometimes when a patient is too weak to press the call button, their IV lines adjust themselves. One thing was certain: Margaret was a good nurse, even in death. Now to our next story, which is about a patient who should have died, but didn't. In 2017, a hospital in Texas began renovations to expand its emergency department. This meant demolishing an old unused wing that had been shut down for over 20 years. No one had stepped inside since the closure. It had been forgotten, left to gather dust, memories, and perhaps something else. When the construction crew first entered, they expected a mess: collapsed ceilings, broken tiles, vandalism. But inside, everything was still in place. The beds remained made, the medical charts were still on counters, and old IV bags hung half-filled with yellowed liquid. It was as if the staff had just walked away one night and never returned. But as they explored deeper, things became more unsettling. In one of the patient rooms, a hospital gown lay on the bed, with the outline of a body still pressed into the mattress, as if someone had just been lying there. Then they found something that wasn't supposed to exist. Near the end of the hallway, past the nurse's station, the workers uncovered a hidden steel door. It wasn't on any blueprints. There was no window, no indication of what it was. But one thing was clear. It locked only from the outside. They forced it open, and what they found sent a chill through everyone's bones. The walls were covered in deep, jagged scratch marks, as if someone, or something, had been clawing to get out. In the center of the room was an old hospital bed, bolted to the floor, the straps still attached. The air inside was thick, damp, and suffocating, carrying the faint scent of something rotting. That was the moment when one of the workers, Luis, refused to step inside. "I'm done," he said, shaking his head. "I don't know what the hell this place is, but I'm not going to be here when it wakes up." The other workers laughed it off. But that night, they stopped laughing. Hospital management had no explanation for the mystery room, but they weren't about to let rumors spread. To avoid unnecessary panic, they decided to station security near the wing until the demolition was completed. Two guards, Michael and Ray, were assigned to patrol the area. At 3 a.m., the motion sensor alarms went off. Thinking it was just rats or maybe a broken sensor, Michael checked the security monitor. Then his blood ran cold. On the grainy black and white footage, something was moving. A tall, thin figure, its body slightly twisted, its head hanging unnaturally low. It moved fast, too fast for a human. Ray, watching over Michael's shoulder, muttered, "Tell me that's just a glitch." Then the figure stopped and turned to face the camera. Its head snapped upward violently, revealing a gaping black void where a face should have been. Michael and Ray rushed toward the abandoned wing, flashlights in hand. The hallway was empty, silent, but the motion detector showed movement just ahead of them. Then a loud bang came from the steel door. Both men froze. The door, the one that had been locked for years, was now wide open. Inside, the scratch marks on the walls looked deeper than before. Then they heard it, a whisper, right next to them. "Let me out." Ray staggered back, his breathing ragged. Michael, gripping his flashlight, turned toward the hallway. That's when they both heard it, the sound of bare feet slowly dragging across the floor. Coming closer, coming toward them. They ran. Neither of them stopped until they were out of the wing and in the brightly lit main corridor of the hospital. They tried explaining what they saw. At first, the hospital higher-ups didn't believe Michael and Ray's story. They dismissed it as exhaustion, a prank, or a trick of the mind. To prove nothing was wrong, they assigned another pair of guards to patrol the abandoned wing the following night. At exactly 3 a.m., the motion sensors went off again. The new guards, Daniel and Chris, rushed to the monitors, expecting to see an animal or a false alarm. Instead, they saw it. The same figure, tall, twisted, moving unnaturally fast, lurking in the shadows. And just like before, it stopped and snapped its head toward the camera. Only this time the screen flickered, and suddenly it was gone. Daniel and Chris sprinted toward the wing, flashlights in hand. The hallway was eerily silent. Then, just like the night before, bang! The steel door, the one that had been locked for over 20 years, was wide open again. The walls looked even more clawed up, as if something had been fighting harder to escape. Then they heard it, the whisper. "Let me out." Something moved in the darkness, bare feet dragging across the cold tile floor. Both guards ran for their lives. The next morning, after hearing their terrified accounts, hospital management finally believed. That same day they made a decision. The wing was to be sealed permanently. No workers were allowed back inside. No demolition. No explanations. Just locked doors, a forgotten hallway, and warnings to never go near it at 3 a.m. But even though the wing is closed off, nurses and doctors who work the night shift still talk about it. Some say if you walk past that hallway at exactly 3 a.m., you'll hear the sound of bare feet shuffling on the cold floor. Others claim they've heard a voice whispering from behind the sealed steel door. "Let me out." Jason was a med student assigned to the hospital morgue for the night shift. It wasn't glamorous, but it was part of his training. The attending physician had left for the night, and Jason was completely alone. Or at least he thought he was. The morgue was cold, colder than usual. Jason rubbed his arms, trying to shake off the creeping chill. It was a quiet night. No new bodies had come in, no autopsies scheduled. He began his usual routine, checking the temperature logs, making sure the refrigeration units were functioning, and ensuring that all the drawers were properly closed. Except one wasn't. Drawer number 4 was open just an inch. Jason frowned. That was strange. He was sure everything had been locked before his shift started. He hesitated, staring at the gap. Then, gripping the handle, he slid the drawer open all the way. Inside lay the pale, lifeless body of an elderly woman, covered in a white sheet. He checked the log. Jane Doe, found dead in her apartment 3 days ago. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. That's when Jason noticed something unsettling. Her eyes were open. Not just open, wide, glassy, and staring directly at him. He swallowed hard, reaching for his radio to call the supervisor. But before he could press the button, the sheet shifted. Not a twitch, not a slow slide. It rose as if something beneath it was pushing up from inside. Jason froze. He had seen post-mortem muscle contractions before, even gas escaping the lungs. But this was different. The sheet lifted higher. Then a hand, thin, bony, ice-cold, shot out from beneath the sheet and grabbed his wrist. Jason screamed and yanked away, stumbling back into a metal table. Instruments clattered to the floor. But when he looked back, the hand was gone. The sheet lay flat again, as if nothing had happened. The woman's eyes were still open. Jason tried to convince himself that his mind was playing tricks on him. It was just exhaustion, just stress. But then, bang! A oud thud echoed from the far end of the room. Jason's breath caught in his throat. He turned his head slowly toward the sound. One of the other drawers had burst open. His stomach dropped. The drawer's metal door hung wide, and inside the body of a middle-aged man lay tilted forward, as if he had just tried to sit up. Jason took a step back, then another. Then, the lights flickered, and the temperature plunged. His breath turned visible in the freezing air. His skin prickled with something beyond cold, something unnatural. Then he heard it, a whisper, faint, distant, yet chillingly close. "Help me!" Jason's heart pounded. The voice was thin, desperate, pleading. He spun around, searching for the source. Nothing. Until he looked back at the elderly woman. Her mouth was slightly open, as if she had just spoken. Jason bolted out of the morgue, breathless, his heart hammering. He needed to get out, needed to tell someone, anyone. He ran straight to security, dragging the on-duty officer back with him. But when they returned, everything was normal. The lights were steady. The room was quiet. The drawers were all closed. The elderly woman's eyes, now shut. The security officer checked the logs. "You sure you saw what you saw?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Jason opened his mouth, then closed it, because on the screen, where the security footage should have shown him running out in terror, there was nothing. A 5-minute gap, a complete unexplained blackout in the recording. Jason was shaken, but something inside him refused to let it go. He knew what he saw. He knew what he heard. The next night, Jason's shift in the morgue was officially over. Another med student, Steph, had been assigned in his place. Jason could have walked away. Should have, but he couldn't. So instead, he returned to the morgue, offering to help Steph with the night's work. Steph, completely unaware of the previous night's horror, accepted his offer without question. As the night dragged on, Jason kept an eye on drawer number 4, the one that had been slightly open the night before. Everything seemed fine, until the temperature dropped, the lights flickered, and then the sound, a low creak. Both Jason and Steph froze as they turned toward the drawers. Drawer number 4 slid open on its own. The white sheet inside shifted, and then a voice, thin, whispers stretching across the cold air. "Help me!" Jason and Steph stared at each other, wide-eyed, their breath visible in the freezing morgue. Then, the voice came again, this time louder. "Please, don't leave me here." The sheet shifted again. Something moved underneath. That was enough for Steph. He backed up, then ran out of the morgue without a second thought. Jason hesitated. He had come back to find answers. He wanted the truth. But the air grew heavier. The sheet lifted further. And then, the whisper turned into a gasp. as if something was trying to breathe. Jason felt his courage snap. Without a second thought, he turned and sprinted after Steph. Neither of them ever returned to the morgue, and neither of them ever spoke about that night again. Because some things aren't meant to be investigated. Now let me ask you, have you ever had a strange hospital experience yourself? We'd love to hear it. Drop your story in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed these terrifying true hospital horror stories, don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because trust me, the next video is scarier. See you in the next video.